What's up, basement dwellers? Welcome to another edition of a Dacetacular Mind, the penultimate episode before the season 3 finale, coming to you next week. And this week, we're not talking about anything really personal. There's no historical memory lane type conversation to be had today. It's more of the United States Dace. What the hell does that mean? I honestly don't know. Realistically, the world is in fucking chaos, to put it politely. I've done episodes before where I've gone on rants about how I don't like the Electoral College, still don't, and have taken shots at the government and where I live on several occasions. Now, since I did that last Electoral College episode back in like 2020, it didn't get better. It didn't. Fun fact, a year after I think I recorded that, they had the whole insurrection. So there's that fun. I want to say it's bad, but it could be worse. There are other areas in the world that are way worse off than man from New Jersey, and a lot of other people that are way worse off than I am. I'm not living the high life. I'm not the 1% that you hear people piss and moan about all the time. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm gonna see what happens if I turn off the light. That's better. But realistically, it's not good. It's not as bad as it could be. It's not that great as it could be. And it's just the way society is today. And that's what I think the United States of Dace really is. It's kind of just a venting station or a venting session for yours truly to complain about the things that I feel that are holding me back. Acknowledge that it's not, I'm in a better spot than a lot of other people, but not where I want to be. And it's due to outside factors that I can't control. One thing I think that is on everybody's mind is that, we're in 2024, elections in November, and nobody's fan of either candidate. I don't think anyone would honestly die on the hill for their candidate, and if they did, that's pretty stupid, considering these men they're not going to be around in our 10 years. They're just, let's be realistic, and if they are, kudos to them, but when you're died as McDonald's and you fall walking up steps, it's going to be tough to live well into your 90s when steps in McDonald's. It's terrible. It just, I hate it. I hate the choice. I voted for both men at one point. I voted for Trump, and I think I've said that before, in 2016, because I liked the concept of a non-politician running for politics. Got burned on that. Once he went full bore of like, I'm just going to say what I got to say to stay in power, and then realizing he had too much power. So then I voted for Biden as like, okay, let's get the orange out of the office, and then we'll transition into hopefully a younger generation in 2024. But now that everybody's like, no, Biden's going to run again because everybody loves someone in their 80s representing a person who's in 35. It's fantastic. Now I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place, and I don't believe Harambe is an option again. I don't know what to do. It's a popularity contest in the end, and that's why I despise the Electoral College. It should be a popularity contest because they are representing the entire country, not your district. If you want your district representative, vote for a House of Representatives. Problem with that is the Congress is the most lame duck Congress we've had ever. You would realistically do better with a Congress with 3 people in it. One who votes blue, one who votes red, and the guy that decides, or girl, that decides whether red or blue that wins that time. Because that's all it is. When your entire body of Congress votes down a party line, what the fuck's the point? Because a Democrat in New Jersey is not a Democrat in Iowa, and a Republican in Iowa is not a Republican in New Jersey. And that's the point of the House of Representatives, is so that those Republicans in New Jersey can balance out the Republicans in Iowa, and vice versa with the Democrats. Of like, okay, you guys represent, you are statistically more religious than somebody in the state of New Jersey, you have your voice. As somebody who doesn't want religion in the government and absolutely should not be, considering there was supposed to be a separation of church and state, I want my voice to not say, okay, my God tells me to do this. Fantastic. But your district is telling you to do this. And that's what you were hired for. So I like the idea that you have a moral compass, and maybe that is what sets you on your morals, and like it kind of gives you the guidance to make your own decisions. But when your district is telling you overwhelmingly to do something, and you're like, nah, man, my party, two party system's awful because there's this country isn't black and white. It's not. It is such a gray country. Two parties just don't work. It could never work. How it worked for as long as it did is impressive. And even then, I'm sure there's people who would have, if they had podcasts, would tell you it didn't work. I mean, look at the Republican Party in 1800s, 1865. He freed slaves. Now, the running narrative is the African American vote is not for Republicans. Granted, it just switched. Democrats were all pro-slavery, but they have more equality leaning narratives and objectives these days. But still two-party, either this or that. Shouldn't be. There's always a third option. There's always there's supposed to be compromise. There's supposed to be like, okay, well, my district says that, corn is the most important vegetable to harvest, but your district says tomatoes are. Okay, well, let's give funding to get 50% tomatoes, 50% corn. That's how it should work. It's oversimplifying it, because I feel like Congress has just turned into showman. So if you don't make it in acting, might as well run for politics. Have a career there. It's just you need people to get in there and get done, and it's very tiresome that over the last 4, 8, 12 years. I mean, this goes all the way back to even Obama's term, and even before him with George W. Like, nah, we ain't gonna do shit because he's not blue, he's not red. So we're just gonna sit on our thumbs. They can't even do a budget. A budget is just a spreadsheet. We need to get out of debt. Do your budget. It shouldn't be political. It should just be like, hey, we need to somehow start making up to some of this debt. They can't even do that, and it's frustrating. It is very frustrating. And then you listen to a lot of shows, a lot of pundits and opinions, and places that call themselves news, which I think should just be removed. That if you have more opinion based shows, and that goes for even the network I watch, which I tend to lean towards CNN. The last 2 weeks, they've just been covering the Trump hush money trial. There's nothing to cover. Realistically, the coverage should be the day they make the ruling and they say, hey, this is the ruling, end of coverage. Like a legit news station should be maybe an hour a day of like, hey, these are the facts. Not going to speculate, not going to give opinions. This is the facts. Man was shot. Investigation pending. End of story. Not man was shot by so and so of this gender, of this race, and the motive we think may be. No. Let the detectives do their job, and when they come back to you and say, hey, we're charging so and so with this crime, you report on that, and then you go, okay, we'll wait for the trial to end, and then you follow up on it when that ends. Like, they need to really start, I guess it's a terrible thing, but policing the word news, because no news station is a news station. It's opinion-based station that occasionally has some news. You get one little fact. Trump has a trial. No verdicts. You could run down what was said at the end of it, but they're running coverage from the moment they uh, meet in the morning to the moment they adjourn, and they can't videotape it. So, like, you have people not in the room speculating and commenting on what happened in the room, and you're calling it news. It's terrible. It's awful. It's stupid. And that's just the way that we've evolved as a society is like just not nonstop, constant fucking barrage of opinions. I'm doing it now myself. I'm telling you, I think people giving their opinions is stupid. They should be allowed to be given their opinions, but I think they need to change. They need to call themselves something different. Like you can't call yourself news if it's opinion based. You're a review channel. Realistically, you're a news for an hour, peppered out through the day. Not even a consistent hour. It's like, oh, 10 minutes. Here's the facts. Bridge fell in Baltimore. What could have caused it? Well, we know this guy was blah blah blah. Let them do the investigation and then report back on what the investigation says. And even like put the asterisk there of like this is an investigation by another human being, and this is what their findings were. Not necessarily facts, it's just their investigation. But I think that's what drives the problem and gets people pushed further and further away. I think the other problem is that there's not many people pushed far left or pushed far right. I firmly believe that the majority of the country is probably in the middle, but the far left and the far right are the loudest. They get the most coverage. They play that coverage over and over again, and it runs with it. You do one bad tweet, one bad post, and people start jumping on and stop commenting on it. That post runs off. Maybe you're 10 posts before that, or like you donating to every charity on the planet and not taking a cent for yourself, and you healed wounded animals in the woods, but then you decided, you know what? The dress was blue, and now you're the enemy. It's just dumb stuff. It's algorithms. It's all that crap. It's just the way things are pushed, and that narrative just runs away with itself, and it's rough. It's exhausting. And the reason I want to talk about that type of stuff is because it impacts you. Um, take a look at the last 4 years. Inflation's through the roof, but if you report on the economy, it's doing really well. People are spending money. People are employed. It looks good on that end. But if you look on the other end, milk's like $8. Gas is close to 4 in New Jersey, which I know that means it's probably 6 or 7 in California. Things are more expensive. So are you doing well? Depends on what spreadsheet you're looking at. Housing. Houses that are 100 years old selling for $250,000. You're telling me there's houses that don't have central air in 2024 that you can sell for $300,000 in the state of New Jersey. Central air has been around since like the 90s. Granted, it was a luxury then, but that was like 30 years ago. That should be standard. But you can sell a house that sits on dirt for $300,000, doesn't even have a basement, could literally wash away. Or even now that, like, with the entire climate change, tornadoes are more prevalent in the state of New Jersey. Yeah, on top of the flooding that's been happening, on top of earthquakes. But your 100-year-old house is worth $300,000. That's stupid. That is absolutely stupid. I get that property value increases because as more humans are available or more humans walk this earth, the more land they'll need to consume to live. But $300,000 for a house, paying $3,000 a month in a mortgage, that at age 35, you'll probably die before you pay off. Unless, the housing market keeps doing what it's doing and you sell that $300,000 house for half a million in 10 to 15 years. And hope that the housing market doesn't crash. But it won't. It's been a progressive problem. I started working at age 14 for $7 an hour. You start working for minimum wage at $7.25 at age 14. I made the transition to what I would call a career as a supervisor in 2009. So I started working in 2003. I think I maxed out at $8 an hour, 8.50 an hour as an hourly employee, and then was hired as a supervisor for $33,000 a year. So I was behind the curve before I got to the curve, and it's impacted me ever since because every time you went to a promotion, the stupid fucking line you get is, "I can't justify that kind of jump." Well, you should pay people for what they're worth doing, especially when somebody else is in that position with less knowledge and makes more, or less experience, or less leadership qualities, or whatever the case may be. It should be equal. Your supervisor, this is what a supervisor makes. Now, I kept progressing, and I'm thankful. I did make the mistake of going to college. I'm still paying for that, and I don't utilize it. I think it's bullshit. You can't get a refund on college. Get a refund on anything else in America, but not college, especially when they fail you. Like, not fail you on a test, fail you, but failed you to the extent of I went for computer animation. They didn't want to give me computer animation until my fourth year, even though I submitted a portfolio and had experience on the computer end of it and was able to do it. They wanted 4 years of tuition out of me to get to that, rather than giving me what I just need, which was give me access to the program, teach me on the program, let me run with the program. Um, Live and learn, but I'm already in debt at that point. I'm making 750 at age 18 with $20,000 of debt for 1 year. Mathematically, you're not going to get out of that. And then you pile on all kinds of other expenses that happen just with life. I'm not the best with money. I'm not going to say that I'm fucking a savant when it comes to managing my money. I'm not, because there's that horrible thing we do as humans where we try to justify purchases or experiences to levitate you out of depression. I do it. An Amazon box showing up on my step will make me feel good about a day compared to a day that doesn't have one show up. Do I need it? Probably not. Um, and if I just worked and didn't do things, that's depressing as fuck. Because by the time you can do things because you worked all that time, you physically can't. You either have kids, so now it's 4 times expensive. Uh, you have injuries that you can't physically do what you wanted to do in your 20s. So you do those experiences out the gate. And that's why, like, should I have done them? No, probably not. The responsible thing would have been to just keep pocketing the money and not be in the situation I'm in now. But ultimately, would depression have won? If you think about it, this generation is probably the most depressed, highest suicidal rate. Is it worth it? And that's what the country's breeding. And that's why I wanted to talk about the United States as a whole. Because unless you're well off, i.e., handouts, which don't even get me started on that. Everybody gets a fucking handout. You're just pissed off that somebody got a handout at a time that you didn't get one. People who I've witnessed use the welfare system or use the state systems and the state assistance, got themselves up, pulled themselves up a ladder, and then immediately went Republican because people are taking too much money. Really? Really? So when you used it, it was fine, but when somebody else uses it, it's not fine now? It's bullshit. And I'm somebody who's I've never collected unemployment in my life. I've never gotten any benefits from the state or the fucking federal government in my life. I've always collected zero on my taxes, so they take the maximum amount. I was unemployed for 1 week in my adult life, and it was the transition to a job. So realistically, it was a vacation because they paid my PTO out from the old job, and then I started the new job when I got back. I haven't taken any handouts from the state, no college grants, no Medicare boosts, nothing. If anyone has a right to be angry that somebody's getting something that they're not, it's probably me. but I don't care because it's shitty. People need it. There are times when it's rough and people need help. And if you're one of those people that took that help and then have turned on that help of like, oh, I'm not helping anyone anymore. They take too much taxes. Well, no shit. You got helped out through assisted housing, Medicare, college grants, your parents paying for shit. You got help. So for you to sit here and say that I'm voting this way because I don't want them to go to programs that help XYZ, that's dickhead move. Do I hate how we spend money? Yeah. You're not gonna like where I hate where the money goes. I hate that it goes into the military. We have no active wars that we are in, yet we are spending a ton of money on wars, a ton of money on our military that isn't actively in anything. We're not the United States is not actively in war. No, but you gotta have an army trained. Do you? Have you seen what most Americans look like these days? I hate that we put money in that. I can tell you where I hate the money goes the most. Congress. You spend probably about $92 million a year just on the 500 plus members of Congress in both the House and Senate to do nothing, to work a third of the year and get nothing done. And that's not counting their staff, their expenses, and they get money on the side to doing speaking events and stuff like that. I mean, they're supposed to claim it. They probably don't. They get lobbyists and super PACs and all that bullshit. Like, we fund money into a body of the government that don't do shit, don't do dick. And I've said it before, and I know I've probably put it on podcast. I know I've said it in private. Totally agreed with storming the Capitol. Stupid fucking reason to do it. I would never do it for one man. But if you want to storm the Capitol for the Capitol being ineffective, that makes sense. You have people that go there, again, a third of the year, they're not even going there a whole year, doing nothing, stalemating each other, showboating. I don't give a fuck about who's president. I care if the fucking Congress and Senate or the House and Senate can push through a bill so our government services don't fucking shut down annually. Why is it that we're always down to the last hour, or we have to shut the government down for a week because you couldn't fucking agree on a budget? You're still getting paid. You make sure of that. I do truly believe that if you took down the House and the Senate to a pay scale of what their district averages, shit would get done. You'd get real volunteers in there. You get people who'd want to make change so that that district didn't make shit money. Like let's put Mr. McConnell at the median annual salary for Kentucky and tell him to go to work in DC. And you expense it first and we'll reimburse you after a long, long process of checking and auditing your expenses. Let's give them the capitalism experience of what a consultant or the general laborer does. I bet you work harder, or I bet you just get the fuck out of the way and you actually retire so a younger generation can come in and actually be represented. I mean, it's nice to have and I'm not mean just him, because there was was it Feinstein? Like you're gonna work up until the point that you're just physically incapable of doing shit. That you'll just die in office in the last year and a half. You're just a lame duck. Who does that help? Except your own pocket. And that's not a public service anymore. It's a private service. That's treason, in my opinion. Even though we started this whole conversation with the opinion of being less opinions would be better. We should all be really fucking mad at the Congress. Your House of Representatives aren't representing you if they're in New York. If you're a Georgia House representative for a Georgia district and you're in New York lobbying for a trial, you're not supporting them. Same as if you're a fucking representative in the district of South Jersey and you're down at the border. They have districts down by the border. Let them speak for themselves. Okay. You want to contribute to immigration. Let's talk about the immigration that's happening in New Jersey and then find the balance between the New Jersey immigration and the Texas immigration and work towards something that's fucking fruitful. Right? Right. That's what the whole concept was. But instead, we keep adding seats, we keep expanding it, we keep redistricting, we keep worrying about who's president, and we keep appointing based on our religious values and bullshit like that, rather than being a bipartisan and non-biased entity that is supposed to help all. Now, I've made comments before that I would run for the House of Representatives or run for Senate, kind of jokingly, but I'd get fired. I'd be censored. I'd get George Santos without actually doing the George Santos things because I'm not voting blue. I'm not voting red. I'm neither. Man, most of America is neither. I live by one very strict rule. Do whatever the fuck you want unless it impedes me or impedes somebody else. You want to be gay? Be gay. It's good for you. You want to be a different gender? Who cares? Go be another gender. You know, but if you're another gender and then all of a sudden you're touching me because, that's what you want to do, then we got a problem because you're touching me. But if you never cross paths with me and you never touch me, I don't care what you do. Live your life. Be happy. It's a very short time we spend on this planet and you're going to be fucking miserable about somebody else and what they're doing, especially when what they're doing is not impacting you whatsoever. You want to sit there and get mad that like drag queens and stuff have shows that you could go to voluntarily, but you're okay with people pledging allegiance under one sole god in school. You're okay with God Bless America being sung at all kinds of sporting events, even though there's multiple religions in this country. You have every right to pray to your God, just like everybody else has a right to pray to Allah or whatever deity they are represented by or believe in. Shouldn't force them to sing it in a ballpark or stand and cross their heart. Just, it's got to stop. There are certain things in this world that need to be neutral, free of religious persecution. The whole reason people came over here and robbed land from America and the Native Americans. And you just need to be neutral. Just really, end of the day, if you're a government facility or a government service, you're neutral. You should look at a piece of paper that says, okay, this is Chris. He's 35. And let's make a decision on that. Don't care that he's white. Don't care if he's black. Don't care if he's a boy. Don't care if it's a girl. Don't care if they don't know who they are. It's just got to be neutral, man. And there's just so much of like one side, and I'm saying both sides. I'm not just particularly. I'm using religion as an example because I don't go to church. I don't practice religion, but I have it pushed on me a lot at different. I hate when somebody tells me that I have to, take my hat off for God bless America. No, God can bless America when he pays taxes. God wants a voice in America, he should pay taxes. And all his little establishments with all his little voices that speak to the masses, pay your taxes. Then you can have any influence you want. But yours shouldn't trump mine when you're not paying anything into the pool of money. Just at the end of the day. He's got to be, government has to be neutral. And it's just, we have to focus on the part of government we can control. Get rid of the electoral college. It's a popularity contest. If 95% of America wants one person to be their president, that's the president. If the majority vote, if 57% votes for a person, that's 50% of all American votes voted for somebody, that guy's president. I don't care where the vote came from. 57% of registered voters, wherever the fuck you're from, doesn't matter. That's the president. Now, when the district in Iowa votes for a Republican who actively goes to church 3 times a week and believes in XYZ and 2 genders and all that, fine, because their district chose that. Their district had a contest, a popularity contest within it. So all 500 people would say, okay, 400 of them voted for the guy or girl. That's who's representing us. Fantastic. The same way I'm going to vote for the polar opposite here in New Jersey to represent our district so they can go and have a debate in DC with the other 500 people that were picked by their district to represent their district and come to a mutual decision or a compromise that says, okay, fair. We're going to put $10 aside for this. That kind of helps the blue agenda, and $10 for the red agenda, and then $10 for a purple agenda that kind of pieces both. There we go. That's the $30 we just spent for the month. That's what the fucking House and Senate are supposed to be. Hell, the Senate's just supposed to be like, what did the House say? I don't see any problems with it. They're just a safe check, a fail check. Honestly, I think senators should be appointed by the state. You elect a governor. The state all of a sudden is more blue. He's going to appoint blue senators. And ultimately, that blue governor pisses off the state and they go red. Then there'll be red senators there when they appoint it. It's fine. It gives better representation rather than, we're always going to keep voting off years. I think they should align elections too. I know it's tough, but you just set a point of like, okay, every 2024, you're voting for everything. And when we start the session in 2025, it's a brand new slate because everybody goes out for a presidential election. It's such a mindset that has to be broken because you need to pick your House of Representatives. You need to vote for that local representation that goes down to DC and hope to God. That's ironic. Hope to whatever you pray in. Hope they do what they were elected to do. That they didn't lie just to get into the seat, to get that cushy salary of $175,000 a year and only have to work a third of the year to represent your district. That's what it was built to do. Somehow it's been morphed into this ugly monster that's going to break. It's ultimately going to break one day. And there's going to be a generation that suffers. And that's the problem. Because no generation wants to be the generation that suffers, so the other generations live better. Boomers proved it, moved on. They're living their best life now. My generation, which is the millennials and often mischaracterized for early 20s, but they're actually the mid 30s. We're entering that realm of like, screw it. We're too far gone. We're too far in. We need to get our nut. Good luck, next generation. And that next generation is pissed off because they're getting it. And that's where I was 10 years ago and still am, because we're bottlenecking. It was said by, you think I'd remember this because I accidentally recorded this before. I recorded this and fucked up the recording. It had no audio, but now I have audio, so I'm redoing it, and I'm a little bit calmer. I was also yelling a lot on the last one. But I was watching Bill Maher, Real Time with Bill Maher, which surprisingly is something I do a lot now, and it kind of drives me nuts because I was a Colbert Stewart guy. But I ended up watching an episode that had this author on there. Immediately bought all his books because I thought what he was saying was phenomenal, and I want to give the author credit because it summed up exactly how I feel. The author's name is Scott Galloway, And he basically was sitting there and he was with Don Lemon and Bill Maher. And he said, we are in a position with a bottleneck of generations. The older generation is not giving up the next step for the younger generation. So they're holding on to that job. They're siphoning off the younger generation to keep supporting them as they live longer and uh, their expenses get higher because of inflation and stuff like that. And then the younger generation is now paying two bills, trying to survive on their own while help supporting this older generation. And they're just getting angrier and angrier. And that will keep happening every single generation until one it gets angry enough and does something about it. He said there's a lot of anger right now. And I'm paraphrasing all this. Don't, it's not a direct quote, but there's a lot of anger right now. And if they actually knew how to direct that anger, it would probably push some kind of fucking change. Unfortunately, the anger is being pushed in weird directions. You have anger being directed for support of Donald Trump. Okay, if he's your guy, fantastic. But is that really the hill you want to die on? I'm not going to die on a hill for Joe Biden. And I think out of the two, he's probably the more decent man. Um, like it's the lesser of two evils thing. But I'm not going to die on a hill for him. I'm not going to set myself on fire. Like it's stupid. You are mad because you're not represented. And for whatever reason, whether it's Joe Biden, uh, Donald Trump, could have been Ron DeSantis, could have been Nikki Haley. I was kind of getting behind her when it came towards the Republican primary ending. Maybe it's AOC or somebody else who's the future of the Democratic Party. Just make sure you're represented. That's the key. You're angry or not, and you're buying into people saying they will and then they don't. I can tell you right now, of the two choices in November, they are out for themselves. And out of those two, Joe Biden is out for himself the least. End of the day. Joe Biden, I don't care for the sole fact that he's the career politician I hate. Someone who has more time in the government than I've been alive, making decisions for me that will impact me well after he's gone. Now, is he making the worst decisions? No. Is he listening better than the other candidate? Yeah. But Joe hasn't been blue collar in over 40 years, if he ever was. Donald Trump sure as shit wasn't. Fifth Avenue guy before he was a politician. He got $1 million loan from his dad to go start a business. His dad was well off. Like, these aren't people representing the vast majority. You want a blue collar guy, go pick a guy up out of Home Depot working the self checkout register, making sure you don't steal shit. He'll probably have insight. Catch the single mom where the deadbeat dad walked out on them. They're trying to fucking survive off of the state benefits you don't think they deserve. They'll probably give you some good insight. A career politician who's been in it for over 40 years does not know what it is like today to just live in a suburb, to live in an urban city. The Fifth Avenue Orange doesn't know either. They're not representative. And even to the point where a lot of our, and this is again where the house is more important because you do get more people in there that are aware of it. Problem is, they're seniors when they get down there. The people who've been in Washington, the people that guide them, the people that ultimately say you're going to vote this way, sway them. Like it's a broken system because by the time somebody gets down there that could do change, they're going to get swallowed up by the system and become part of the system and then never break the system. And that is what sucks. That's why we need term limits. We need age limits. I don't give a fuck if you think it's ageism. If you can collect Social Security, a system that is broken, and vote to keep that system going while you're collecting Social Security, you don't belong there. If you personally did not grow up with computers, you shouldn't be making decisions about computers. If your staffer types your emails because you don't know how to, or your staffer works Excel because you don't know how to, you should not be making decisions on that. It's a generational change, and there needs to be safeguards in there that a generation who will not be around for the impacts of their decisions, and a generation that does not understand the present generation of the workforce should not be making those decisions. Thank you for your service. Move on. Maybe you can be a consultant or advisor. Just create a role like that. Like, hey, you get a consultant fee from the government to help out every once in a while. But your service to actually writing bills and laws to progress this country forward is gone. It's diminished. You can get the Denny's discount. You can fuck off out of DC. I'm done. I'm done with age. And the problem is, by the time it changes, if it changes, I'll be that age. And I won't want to let go if I got some kind of power. And that's a circle you got to break. You got to be the ones to break the circle. I would gladly do it. I got a son that I don't want to have sitting in the same exact spot in 30 years, pissed off because I stuck around too long. Hell, I don't want to make decisions now because I don't think it's like AI, not my call. By the time AI gets good enough to be what AI could be, I don't understand it. I understand it somewhat now. I can fuck with it. Got to kill Gibby, breaking its protocol of not harming people. Also, got to tell me where the big booty hose existed. So, do you really want me in that kind of power? I wouldn't want me in that kind of power. We just got to break the system. Government needs to be neutral. Government can't have a religious sway. It can't have a bias. It can't say certain groups of people can't decide things for themselves. But women, what they're going through right now is fucking stupid. You want to tell them they can't seek medical care for something that they want to have done to their body is just mind-boggling, because those that have had it done, that is it's a burden they live with for the rest of their life. A decision they made that that sticks with them. I'll never understand it. I can't. I am so grateful for the little one that I have. But that was my choice. Well, our choice. I don't it wouldn't have been my call. Because again, it's not a choice that, like, you listen to the arguments against it, and I don't think it's as willy-nilly as people think. It's a small percentage that might feel that way, like, might just do it, like, every other day because, like, "Eh, fuck it. There's a clinic down there that'll take care of it, scrape it out, let's move on to the next." But that's a minority. I mean, you use the same argument that a minority of people use guns to kill people, even though it's larger than probably abortions, but you don't take the guns away from everybody. That's the craziness that drives me nuts. Is you use logic here to say, "Oh, abortion is awful. Take it away. Nobody gets service. Absolute no abortions whatsoever. Zero abortions." Okay, because like a handful of women just do the procedure like they're doing morning yoga. Whereas school shootings happen, and mass shootings happen, and hate crimes happen with guns. But we can't just take the guns away from everybody because a few bad eggs did some bad things. I mean, you're taking that logic and you won't apply it to abortion. A few bad eggs had way too many abortions, even if that's a thing. I've never heard that. I've never heard of someone like, "Oh, I got a froyo card where I've done 30 punch outs." But I can probably tell you a lot of mass shootings that I've heard about. And yet those guns are still out there. And the crazy thing is, the guns that are out there that are legal aren't the problem most of the time. But, you know, logic, something America doesn't seem to have these days. Let's shoot from the hip emotionally and make an emotional decision or a religious decision, or Yeah, it's just those two, really. And not deal with the consequences. It's fucking stupid. Phillies are going to start. So I think that's a good time to end the Dacetacular Mind for this week because it got serious. There was no fun parts of this. I knew it was going to be an awkward conversation, especially since this is the second time I'm recording it. So yeah, it kind of sucks. Again, knew it was going to suck. Didn't know what I was going to talk about precisely. I knew it was going to be, again, this is the second time I'm recording this since I didn't record the first time with the audio. But there's just a lot of tension and bothers me. This is the type of stuff that I do think about at night when I'm laying in bed. If I'm not writing bad jokes about bears and women in the woods, it's just shit. It's a weird sense of hopelessness because it's going to take a lot of people to get things done. Like you hear that all the time of like it took one person to make a movement. It didn't. There's one person who's a face of the movement oftentimes, but there's hundreds of people behind that person trying to push that boulder. And that boulder still doesn't move as far as you think it should have moved. And to rock this system, you're going to need to burn it down and start again because right now it is so fucking corrupt that anytime you put somebody new in there that you think is going to fix it, they get gobbled up at it, even if they start getting traction. And if they don't get gobbled up at it, they get spit the fuck out before they can do anything. So think about that, all 10 people that listen to this. It is a shit situation that won't be solved in my lifetime. I sadly don't believe it'll be solved in Wade's lifetime. But it will impact the lifetimes of many others and many generations after us. Because what do? They used it for the banks. Too big to fail. How is that not the U.S. government? That's going to do it for us here on the Dacetacular Mind. Again, it's not my strongest episode. I had more fun with the other ones. Next week is the finale. We're calling it New Beginnings. So I want to talk about what I want to do in the future and what this will turn into, hopefully, in the future, and what PPP will do in the future. And now that, the whole theme of this season is I'm back to being me for the most part, what that actually means. So, sorry for this downer / filler episode. This is the one in, the Star Wars, Clone Wars, or Bad Batch that you would skip because it doesn't really have any implications on the rest of the season. But, we just had to give you 10 episodes. So this is why it's episode 9. Yeah. So check us out on Basement Protocol. We're at facebook.com/Basement Protocol Productions. Dacetacular Mind drops every Monday. Finale is next week. And then I'll have news on what this series will do after that. Every Wednesday is Pod or Nerd. I hope you like the format where it's kind of like the Dace Man show, but with the Pod and Nerd mashing together, where the first half will be news for the week. And then I'll sit down and talk with people who are watching TV and movies and stuff like that. And we'll just kind of give an honest review and Easter eggs and cool things and talk about the shit. This Wednesday, we should be talking about X-Men 97 and the beginning of their 3-part finale. The first part, we'll be talking with Frank Klein, hopefully. The Bad Batch finale happened, so I'll be talking hopefully with Gibby with that. Tales of the Empire dropped this past weekend. Should be talking that, and should be talking Knuckles with somebody, so we'll see what happens there. And then every Friday is Jersey Bullies. Sorry we didn't have an episode last Friday, but Eric had some unapproved PTO time in Disney. I don't know who allows these people to have vacation time for this non-paying gig that we do. JK, just kidding, bastards. Anyway, I'm just jealous he's in Disney and I'm not. Couldn't tell by my bluey Deadpool shirt. You can't tell if you listen on Spotify. Thank you for tuning in, Basement Dwellers. Remember, stick to the protocol, and thank you for unlocking my mind. I'll see you next week for the finale.